President, if I could, on China, they reported for the first time since the outbreak no new cases over a 24-hour period. Do you have any reason to disbelieve them? And second to that, the National Security Council yesterday put out a tweet very critical of the Chinese government, saying the Chinese Communist Party suppressed initial reports on the Chinese virus and punished doctors and journalists, causing Chinese and international experts to miss critical opportunities to prevent a global pandemic. Could you explain?
Well, it would have been much better if we had known about this a number of months earlier. It could have been contained to that one area in China where it started. And certainly the world is paying a big price for what they did, and the world is paying a very big price for not letting them come out. Everybody knows that. We all know that. As far as believing what they're putting out now, I hope it's true. Who knows? But I hope it's true. I really do.
Quickly, a question for you, and then also for the doctor, if possible. You've been talking about China quite a bit, and you've been talking about the Chinese virus, how if you had heard about this on day one and had more information, possibly you could have stopped it.
Big difference.
Are you thinking about any types of repercussions for China, and are you also rethinking sort of the supply lines for our manufacturing industry?
I don't want to comment on that right now. Yeah.
President, I have a question for you and also a question for Dr. Birx. If you, American workers across the country are losing their jobs at an unprecedented rate, and your former economist said we could see some of the worst job numbers ever. Is the government prepared to see this spike in unemployment?
You know, worst case scenario, you would have terrible job numbers. If we can get this thing wrapped up and finished earlier, things will go very nicely. And one of the things they're working, as you know, one of the elements that is being worked on very much so in the Hill is to keep the jobs going, so that when we do get rid of the virus, we're going to be able to just really, I think, go like a rocket. I think the economy is going to be fantastic. Now, when he said that, he was using that as the ultimate bad outcome. I don't think anybody believes that's going to happen.
Members of Congress are now being tested positive for. Members of Congress are now being tested positive for coronavirus, and you have almost 24 who are self-quarantining. Do you have any guidance for Congress? Should they?
I know all of them, and I don't know if they're sitting like you people are sitting. You're actually sitting too close. We should probably get rid of about another 75, 80% of you. I'll have just 2 or 3 that I like in this room. I think that's a great way of doing it. We just figured a new way of doing it, but you're actually much too close. You know, you two, you should leave immediately. But look, I know all of them. They tested positive. Hopefully they're all going to get better. And it's one of those things. It's Congress, you know. It's one of those things.
Should they keep going to the Hill, or should they?
Well, I don't think they're going to the Hill. I mean, I know some where they tested positive. They're in quarantine, and I know Lindsay and many others they didn't test it, but until they got the result, they put themselves in quarantine. A number of people in Congress right now are in quarantine. They don't know the results. When they get the result, they'll either stay there and get better. Because people get better. I mean, most people are getting better. Most, by far, you get better. Doesn't mean it's not a tough one. It is a tough one. But no, when many people in Congress have felt not perfect, or they met somebody that wasn't perfect, it turned out to be positive, and they've put themselves in quarantine. And I think Congress has behaved unbelievably well in that regard.
Mr. President, on the stimulus, sir, given what is happening to the economy, do you think $1 trillion stimulus is enough?
We'll know about that later on. We'll see what happens. It depends how long. So much depends on what's going on in this room in terms of the medical. If we can stop it in its tracks, the virus, it's plenty. If we can't, we'll have to go back and talk.
Do you support the idea of the government taking an equity stake in certain companies?
I do. I really do.
Which companies are you?
I'm not going to say, but I think so. Look, people are coming in for money. In some cases, no fault of their own, but in some cases where they did certain things over the course of the years, including buying back stock. You know, they bought back stock and they paid a high price for it, as it turned out. But maybe I view that as a little bit differently than somebody that didn't, than somebody that built plants all over the United States, of which there were plenty of them, too.
Would you consider airlines or Boeing, or what are you thinking of?
We will be helping the airline industry. We will be helping the cruise ship industry. We probably will be helping the hotel industry. We'll probably be where jobs are created. You don't want to lose industries like this. These are incredible industries. You can't lose them. So we'll be focused on many industries. And I have to say, I can't state it strongly enough, we will be helping small businesses. That's where it's complicated, because there's a lot of small, that's the engine of the country. We will be helping small businesses.
Dr. Hunt, Mr. President. These two members of Congress that have tested positive for coronavirus, these will be votes that you need to pass this $1 trillion stimulus package for the economy. Do you expect this to slow down the delivery of checks for American families? And are you considering any executive action?
There could be. We're looking at a couple of things that I could do. Hopefully we won't need it, but we can do. There's a lot of executive power. If we don't have to use it, that would be a good thing, not a bad thing. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. One for you, and potentially as well one for either Dr. Birch or Dr. Adams. Right now, the economy is essentially ground to a halt.
Thanks for telling us. We appreciate it.
Stores have closed. Travel has slowed down.
Go ahead. What's the rest of your question? We know that. Everybody in the room knows that.
The question is, how long should those who are either not working right now or business owners who have to make critical decisions, how long should they expect the state of affairs as it stands at this moment to play out? And for the doctors behind you,
we'll be able to tell you that I think in the near future. We'll see where we're going. You're going to see numbers. You've seen the graphs. You're going to see numbers, and we'll be able to let you know. I will say that the American public has been incredible for the most part, not in all cases, but for the most part. So you'll be able to see what's happening over the next, as we say, we had a 15-day period. You'll be able to tell a lot in a week or so, not everything, but we'll be able to see over a period of time.
And for all the parents that are home right now, and this is a question for Dr. Birch or Dr. Adams, who are caring for their children and are curious as to when might my kids be able to go back to school, what do you think is a realistic timeline?
Well, I think all of those decisions are made at the state and local government level, and each state and local government has handled it differently. That's why we put out from the president federal presidential guidance to every single person about what we think is important for the next 2 weeks. And as we look at that data, we'll be able to see if it's having an impact. I think you've all seen the modeling studies. Those were driven by the modeling studies showing that if you add these things together, they have a bigger impact than separately. And so those are part of the decision making. We had a whole group of modelers in yesterday. They're compositing all the data together to look at this carefully, because everyone has those same questions of what the impact will be and what pieces could essentially be removed and you still have the same level of impact in decreasing the spread of the virus. The absolute key to this, though, is every single American looking at the president guidelines and taking it seriously. The acts of selflessness that I am seeing are so impressive across the board. But if even 10 or 15% of the population decides that what they're doing today is more important than the health and welfare of the rest of the Americans, they can spread the virus in a very strong way because you know the level of contagion.
Do you have a general timeline?
And I have to say, if chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine works, or any of the other things that they're looking at that are not quite as far out. But if they work, your numbers are going to come down very rapidly. So we'll see what happens. But there's a real chance that they might work. Go ahead, please. In the back.
Thank you so much. What is your message for some leaders in Latin America, like the president of Brazil, who just on Sunday was taking photos with supporters and encouraging mass demonstration? And just yesterday, the president from Brazil said that we should not be surprised if we see him in the next few days in a crowded subway in São Paulo or in a bus in Rio, because he is the president and should be with the people. What do you think about that, and what is your message?
Well, he's a friend of mine, number one. And number two, we had dinner the other night, and everybody said he was positive, and he wasn't positive. He tested negative, so that was I was quite happy when I heard that. But I have no message for him other than he's doing a good job in Brazil. He's doing a good job in Brazil, and he's very popular.
How about encouraging mass demonstration at this moment?
I can't tell you about that. I don't know about that. I have not heard that. He's doing a very good job. Brazil was very troubled before he got there, and the people love him and it's popular.